Truth, logic, action, power. It's the GreggHoush Show here on New Revolutionary Radio. This is a show where we seek not only to inform, but to inspire you to action. We're going to talk about politics and current events on our program, but we're going to do it from an angle of human rights, civil liberties, and activism. It's our goal to enable an informed citizenry, and we're going to do that by emphasizing critical thinking, news source verification, and actual science versus nonsensical quackery. But most important of all, we hope to inspire you, our listeners, to take action in your community. For while our job is to deliver the clear, verified truth, our talking to you is only a small part of our goals. The real power belongs to you, and it is up to you to decide where your strength lies when facing the real challenges ahead. But know that when you decide to stand up and make a difference, we will stand beside you.
And welcome to the GreggHoush Show, episode 11 tonight. Finally past 10, and the website's going to launch with this episode too. Tonight I am here with co-hosts Kayla and Mac.
Big Mac Daddy, back in Mac.
I don't think she's ever going to stop doing that.
Probably not. No, you got to do it. It's just, he's the Macinator, the Mactastic.
The Mactastic. All right, so today we are going to be talking about Comey and his wonderful testimony. We're going to be talking about the Intercept and its outing of sources. The Saudi Arabia versus Qatar versus Iran topic is an interesting one that doesn't seem to have any good answers.
We're also going to explain how to properly pronounce Qatar.
Qatar?
And it's definitely not Qatar.
It is definitely not
Qatar.
Qatar.
That is actually fake news
Yes.
by the mainstream media.
If it fits, we're going to talk about the UK election a little. There's all kinds of fun stuff to be had tonight. So,
and I'm sure there's breaking news by the end of this podcast.
It seems to be the pace of things right now. So we're going to start with Comey here, and he went before our wonderful government today to give some testimony at the Senate Intelligence Committee about his interactions with Trump, and a lot of it about his opinion about things, although he didn't give much of his opinion. He more tried to state as many facts as he could and stay on point.
He seemed to be very dedicated to avoiding giving opinions about things.
Yeah, because his opinions get him in trouble.
That's true.
I don't know if you've watched the last two hearings he's been part of, and it seems to have gotten him in trouble both times. But I did enjoy how many times he called our president a liar.
It was like 5?
At least.
Yeah, when he said
his opening statement.
The reason that he felt the need to document this was the nature of the person he was dealing with.
Yeah, which is like huge. I think that was like the biggest bombshell.
That's my favorite.
I mean, it's not. I don't even think that's. I feel like it's kind of sad to say this, but I feel like that's not even much of a bombshell at this point. Like, oh, I thought Donald Trump is a liar, so therefore I should. Well, yeah, his own lawyers said that in court hearings back in the early 90s. They said, oh, whenever we can, we don't meet with him alone because Donald says something and then later doesn't remember that.
Like, well, I mean, to normal people with brains in their head, yes.
And then
but when it comes to Republicans in the Senate, like, they need to continuously hear this.
I mean, there was also the entire 2016 campaign, which was basically Donald Trump lying nonstop. So it doesn't really seem like very much of a surprise at this point that someone thought, I should probably document this because Donald Trump might lie about this later.
Based on his history and actions on a daily, he seems to be a liar.
Well, and what we have actually is during the testimony, we have Comey saying, that these were all very uncomfortable interactions, and that during one of the meetings, I believe specifically at dinner, he was asked if he was loyal. And he was asked to be loyal, and he did not really respond positively to that. And in the realm of who is telling the truth and who is lying, Trump's lawyer today said that didn't happen. So one of them's lying, and based on history and based on how many people I've seen so far on television and in the news say that Comey is an upstanding individual, I'm gonna have to say I think Trump and his lawyer might be the ones lying here.
Yeah.
So Comey doesn't really seem to have much motive to lie about that. He doesn't really have
also,
that
he
much of a
wouldn't-
dog in that
He
particular
doesn't
fight.
seem
Even
crafty
still-
either.
But
Like
even
he just
still,
seems like a guy who can
make
only.
a memo. Like you know what I mean? Like there wouldn't he wouldn't just like come up, sit on his desk and be like, you know what I should do today? I should make up a memo.
And maybe in a few months,
Maybe this
I
will-
can use this to fuck with.
And maybe I can leak this to the press and then get fired and then give testimony on the memo.
Really playing that 4D chess.
Like that's up there with the crazy conspiracies about like, you know, dinosaur bones being planted just to test our like faith in God, which is a real thing that Christians
Yes.
sometimes believe. So,
Yeah, no, it doesn't really seem very plausible that Comey is the one lying in the situation.
like, even if he misread the interaction, he's still not lying because that's
Right.
how he interpreted the whole dinner and then memoed it. Like, you just wouldn't write a memorandum.
Also, we have to remember that this lawyer wasn't actually present for the conversation. He's repeating whatever Donald Trump told him.
Because he's also being paid by Donald Trump.
Right, but I mean, he's Donald Trump's lawyer. He wasn't present. He's listening to his client and saying, "Oh, my client told me this." The only credibility here is Donald Trump's.
Not only did he have his, not only did he have
That's
his
a really hard sentence to believe.
Yeah.
You know?
Right?
Not
Like,
only did he have his
that he has
personal
any credibility.
lawyer
Well,
come
I mean,
out and
that's the
say
whole
that he wasn't a
point.
liar, he also had 2 other White House aides make a point to come out and say to the press, Donald Trump is definitely not a liar.
right.
Which, if anything tells you who's lying, it's
So-
Donald
It's the person
Trump.
having a lot of press conferences by their subordinates
Yeah.
coming out to tell you they're not
Having
a
their
liar.
paid aides be like, "Hey, make sure you tell the press I'm not a liar." I don't think they understand that I'm not a liar. Keep saying that. Let's keep driving that narrative home.
I hope you can see your way to making sure the press hears that I'm not a liar.
So during this testimony today, you know, he didn't repeat anything that he had put out in the written statement from yesterday, other than under questioning, but he didn't open up by reading that. So I think that's a good read for everyone just to go and check out what he said yesterday, as I think him putting it down in writing really was an important step for him. But, you know, the thing that got me was the repeated questions, the people asking the same questions and trying to come at it different ways. You know, he was asked by multiple why he didn't tell anyone about this. And, you know, he had a really straightforward, simple answer. Sessions was going to recuse himself. The deputy was going to take over, but hadn't yet. And no one else was confirmed by the Senate. So there really wasn't anyone to tell this to that it would have been any real, you know, that he would have had a reason to tell yet.
Well,
that
he
he
did-
planned on telling them at some point, but that there was no one to tell at that point.
I think he did talk with Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, about the calls that he had on March 30th and April 11th.
Right.
So he did actually.
Well, and he did
even
also
mention
tell
some of it.
Sessions not to
Right,
leave me
right.
alone in a room with that man again.
So
I
it's
can't
not even like
help-
he didn't report it at all.
I can't help but draw
Right,
the
he just
comparison to like the fact that it's like by all of them saying, "Why didn't you tell anyone?" It's like, that's a similar question that all victims of
Right?
sexual assault get.
Like,
And
why
who's
didn't
our-
you fight back more?
Yeah, why didn't you tell
It's
him
all your
no?
fault.
And with our president being a sexual predator, it just seems
Yeah, no,
very in line with.
It does seem strangely fitting.
Yeah. You know, I also appreciated that yesterday when Comey put out his written testimony and his lawyer came out and said Trump feels completely vindicated by his words, and now today he's completely going back on that and being like, he's a liar, everything he said today is a lie. And it's like, wait, you can feel vindicated, but now he's a liar. Someone's lying.
Again.
It's still Trump. It is still Trump.
So based on the prepared testimony, what was put together yesterday, Philip Allen Lacavera, former member of counsel to the Watergate special prosecutors, said, quote, in prepared testimony released on the eve of his appearance Thursday before the Senate Intelligence Committee, former FBI Director James B. Comey placed President Trump in the gun sights of a federal criminal investigation, laying out evidence sufficient for a case of obstruction of justice. Now, this is coming from someone who worked on Watergate.
And was actually involved in the prosecution. And actually, that quote came from a op-ed that he published in the Washington Post yesterday that I highly recommend people read because it's a very interesting read. It's titled, I Helped Prosecute Watergate. Comey's Statement is Sufficient Evidence for an Obstruction of Justice Case.
Yeah, but like according to Paul Ryan, Trump doesn't know, like he's new to government, so like he doesn't know how to obstruct justice. So like,
Well,
he
he is
can't
a
be
natural.
He's a natural criminal. Just
Well,
comes so easy.
We all know that ignorance of the law in this country is not an argument against prosecution. That
Defense.
just because you don't know that was a crime doesn't mean you get off.
Right. As long as as long as the actions you intended to do were in fact criminal, it doesn't matter if you intended to commit a criminal act, because the thing you intended to do
Like you still
was
intend to
criminal
do
act.
this thing,
And it is
whether
a
or not
criminal
you,
act.
Yeah, it's like you just because you didn't know it was a crime, you still intended to do it. You just
Look, how could I know that stabbing 5 hobos was a crime? Okay.
I mean, I just wanted to stab hobos. No one told me that was illegal. It's like, yeah, okay.
Not like I had a lawyer to give me advice on the topic or something.
Funny enough that you bring that up, because I'm pretty sure that's actually in the new the GOP Senate healthcare bill. That's how they're going to combat homelessness, is they're just going to start stabbing hobos. It'll be easier than like actually treating them or giving them government aid.
You know,
That might be fake news.
I'm honestly more surprised
don't
by the
know
fact
yet.
that apparently the Republican plan is actually effective at
Yeah.
achieving its goal.
We don't not know that's not in the plan.
So
It could very well be. It could not
it
be.
could
We don't
be,
know.
could
We
not.
don't know.
I mean, with Trump, I'm sure
Anything
I'm
is
sure he's
possible.
walked outside long enough, to see a homeless person. So maybe he cares about them now.
I think he kicked them all out in New York
Yeah,
City one year.
pretty sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm pretty
yeah.
sure that was a court case.
Well, I mean, again, all you've got to do is be the last person in the room with him when no one else is there, and then tell him that he needs to work for homeless people, and then he will for a few minutes until
Like,
the next person
he'll
enters
grab
the
your
room.
pussy first,
Well, of course. But I mean,
but then you tell him to care about homeless people.
back to kind of the testimony today.
Tangent.
Today, we heard from Comey clearly that when asked if he had any doubts that Russia had indeed attacked our elections, attempted to hack, and been part of the leaking and all the other fun stuff, that Comey said he had no doubts that this happened, that the investigations will uncover all of this fun stuff, and
Lordy, he hopes he releases all the tapes.
yes, and of course asked about that wonderful tweet from Trump about there might be recordings. Lordy, he does indeed hope that the tapes exist because he thinks they will exonerate him.
Well, you know what's funny about like that? Them repeatedly asking him about that tweet. It's like he said the first time he asked him about that tweet, he was like, "Well, sure, if there's tapes, release them. I would love for him to release them." And then they continued to ask him like, "Well, would you accept if you like? Would you be okay with him releasing tapes?" And it's like, how many times does he have to say yes? Like, we're not even talking about no anymore. Like, what men can't even understand what yes means now? Like, I was like, he said yes, release the tapes. And you repeatedly be like, well, should he release the tapes?
Mr. Comey, would you release the tapes in a box? Would you release them with a fox?
But
I
it's
think
not.
that was actually Senator Roy Blunt's question.
I think you might be right on that.
Well, if we look at everything that we learned today from Comey, and then we look at statements by people like Philip Allen, Lacovera, and then we look specifically at Coates and what he said about being asked if he could intervene and talk to Comey about this investigation. It really, Coates, Daniel Coates, a former director or director of national intelligence,
Yes.
I should say. He said that he was asked to do this, and so someone. Where did we get
They
that
said
quote?
that some people that he knows reported that he said that Trump asked him if he could persuade Comey. But then when he was asked, he specifically said that he's never been directed to do anything he believes to be illegal, immoral, unethical, or inappropriate, and does not remember being pressured to do so.
Well, not being pressured to do something he believes to be illegal or immoral is
Or, I'm sorry,
entirely different than saying, that I wasn't asked to do a thing.
I'm sorry, that I actually got that wrong. That was Michael Rogers that said that. Coates said, "Never been pressured. I've never been pressured to intervene or interfere in any way with shaping intelligence in a political way or in relationship to an ongoing investigation," which also does not specifically say that he wasn't asked to
It's a
talk.
good way to dance around the problem.
It really is.
Yeah, it's
These
like you
people,
could be
man.
asked to not feel pressure, And it's like, he probably just said no.
Also, I've never been pressured to intervene or interfere in any way with shaping intelligence in a political way or in relationship to an ongoing investigation. That's just, I didn't bring him any intelligence to show him this. No, I was just asked to go have a chat with him and say, hey, you should drop that.
Yeah, it's
Because that's not shaping intelligence.
Not at all.
There's no intelligence involved.
Is there intelligence involved in any of this administration?
More than one sense.
So we have a bunch of people who believe that, an obstruction of justice might have happened here. We have Comey not admitting that he believes that, but definitely giving as much as he can to help the case.
Everything he said pretty straightforward.
To be fair, for a law enforcement, it's not up to him to say whether it happened. That's actually a question of law. So,
well, of course.
I mean,
it's not a matter of
even asked his opinion, he
Yeah.
won't give on that one specifically.
Because he's no longer. I mean, I respect him not saying that just from a legal standpoint.
So do I.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
because
he's
that's
saying
the whole
everything
point
he
of a
can up to that point.
Yeah. It's
He's avoiding it without avoiding it. He is definitely putting it out there that I believe this without saying it.
because he's also not in a position to bring the charges anymore. So it's like for him to say anything is completely circumstantial.
Well, it's also, you look back at last year, and he did in fact comment on his opinion on the merit of charges related to Hillary Clinton. He said he didn't think they could prove anything in court, and therefore they weren't going to be pursuing charges. So it's not like he's never given an opinion like that.
I guess the biggest difference between then and now is the fact that he's no longer in the director chair. So I think if he was in the director chair giving that same answer, then I think there would be an argument to say, but you had an opinion then, but because now he's a private citizen, I think there is an argument for him to have given that answer.
I also think that part of it is just him being circumspect because he doesn't want to come across as just being this guy out to attack Donald Trump, and he doesn't like Donald Trump. Look at him; he says all this shit about Donald Trump, and so instead he's trying to go, overboard and not giving personal opinions and sticking to the facts. And this is what happened.
The facts are good enough on this one, so I'm happy with that.
That's what gets me. Like every time, you've got someone who does these silly, subtle things where it's the last time he gave the testimony when he said Huma Abedin had hundreds of thousands of emails. It's look, idiot. There's enough again with the Fox News machine. We don't need you to just give an exaggerated tale to make it more dramatic. It's stick to the facts. They're good. They have the truth there. We don't need to dress them up. We don't need to put ribbons on them.
Yeah, sometimes I get conspiracy theories and that, the news this week is boring, but we don't have any of that right now. The news is enough right now, just the truth. So one of my favorite things today was watching, some of the Republicans toe the party line, and, that's sad in that they're supporting their party more than their country when they do that.
Marco Rubio did a great job.
Rubio was funny. Because if you just watched him, he basically got Comey to repeat everything Comey had already said. He got him to clarify his points with stronger language, and didn't get him to say anything that the Republican Party would have been happy about. And if you really look at it, what it looked like to me was was Rubio setting himself up for the next presidential run, starting to build that I might not be completely on this president's side. Because
he did have dinner with him. Him and Senator Tom Cotton had dinner with him on Monday.
Yeah.
So it's just...
Yeah, but if you really watch what Rubio did today, and all he really did was he got Comey to get even stronger points out. He did not do anything that was negative towards what Comey was saying or positive for the president.
My personal opinion about Marco Rubio is that he's only good for being the pool game.
Well,
Marco.
He's also,
he's such a...
Hey, all I'm going to say is I was surprised he showed up for work today.
Right.
That is true.
It's always a surprise.
Yeah, I figured he was going to be scared to even show up because of that dinner he had.
Right?
Yeah, because I'm sure something stupid happened in that dinner, and Tom Cotton is just such a stupid idiot. He is the human version of a Q-tip. That's what he is. And you could tell that he would gargle whatever Trump spewed. So it's I didn't think that Rubio was going to show up just in fear of saving face.
Well, now what happens next, right? We're looking at things. We have a pretty clear picture that something bad happened here. It could actually be obstruction of justice.
I mean, okay, obstruction of justice is pretty clearly defined in the law. I actually looked this up earlier.
Actually can be also really narrow, really wide
Right,
too.
yeah, there's
So
like,
it's
it
like,
is very
there's like
wide, but
20
it's
different like obstruction of
but-
justices that could be in play here.
But
and you could charge him whenever.
the actual statute, 18 U.S. Code, Section 1503A, says essentially whoever by any threatening letter or communication influences, obstructs, or impedes, or endeavors to influence, obstruct, or impede the due administration of justice shall be punished, provided as in subsection B. So like all you have to do is literally attempt to influence an investigation. That's it.
And on the state level, obstruction of justice could be not giving your name to the cop when they ask for your name.
Right,
like,
right.
Like it's like the bar can be so low or so high depending on how white the person is,
Right,
and
but,
how
I
white their
mean, like,
collar is.
Literally any way you want to cut this, it's impossible. It's pretty much impossible to avoid the conclusion that what Donald Trump did is just blatantly
What
one
I
of the
actually
biggest cases
hope-
of obstruction of justice.
What actually will I actually hope will happen next, because I think it might happen first before anything happens to Trump.
Yeah.
Is Jeff Sessions to have to be resigned?
That was another very interesting thing from Comey's testimony today.
Yeah, I
where
really
he was
think
talking about like how he couldn't talk about it in an open session, but the FBI had information that
Jeff
they were
Sessions.
super convinced meant that Jeff Sessions was going to have to recuse himself on Russia.
Yeah.
But he couldn't discuss it in an open session, which means it's not any information that's public knowledge and publicly available. For
Or
example,
declassified, yeah.
Jeff Sessions perjuring himself in his confirmation hearings, which is the reason that he had to
He
recuse.
did say that some of that data was something that had been reported on, but reported on completely wrong. But I can't correct that in public. I need to,
Right.
you know.
But I mean, like, we know that all of the reporting about Sessions having the meetings with the Russians is fact. That's
Yeah.
just been established.
Yeah, and
we
he
have his
dug his own
testimony
grave on
on
the-
record.
Yeah.
Like, that part is pretty straightforward. So they have something beyond that, some of
And
which
they-
was discussed
and
incorrectly.
he did it twice. Not only did he
Yes.
perjure himself during his own testimony on his own volition,
For no reason
yeah,
whatsoever.
for no reason, didn't even answer the question Al Franken asked him, and then threw himself in the Russian hat mix. But then he neglected to put the Russian, conversations and meetings in his security clearance.
Right. And then also, actually, on top of that, he had the opportunity, of course, to correct any misstatements he made in his testimony in his written remarks to Congress, and didn't do that either.
So 3 different times he has lied under oath, and he's still the top attorney and lead prosecutor of the entire country. Like, I really think that if anything good is going to come out of the Russian investigation, it might be Sessions having to resign.
Yeah.
Which would be beautiful. That would be a huge milestone for just everybody.
Basic decency?
Yeah, all of our human rights.
I mean, the thing that I'm just, wondering where it goes is the formal impeachment procedures have already been started. The House Democrat Al Green already actually called for it and started the initial procedures.
I'm
Democrats
not
in the
too
House, but-
optimistic about it, because if anything, if let's say it does go through, what I've heard a few people who said, going back to the Nixon, is that it didn't the Nixon impeachment wasn't finished, or wasn't able to be formally brought to the House until into his second term, and it was started in his first. So
It takes a while.
yeah, so it's just one of these
You've
things
just
where
got
it's
to get them to resign.
yeah, I'm really hoping for resignations
Well,
than
I
an
don't
impeachment.
see a resignation happening from Trump.
I'm hoping a heart attack.
Yeah, I could see him leaving via death. I could
Yeah,
see him
'cause
leaving via
his-
impeachment and removal, and I could see him leaving via being removed via the 25th Amendment. I don't see him resigning.
Yeah, I think heart attack would happen with him, if anything, or the Mike Pence thing. But then you get fundamentalist Christians coming in, and I really don't want the Gilead to take over, because that's just weird. But I don't think an impeachment's going to happen. I know we all want it.
I think there are pretty good odds on an impeachment. It just
How long does it take?
right.
Yeah.
It's a quite like
All of that is what we've got to wait on.
Are we going to get a second term of
I don't
him?
think
before?
so.
Oh God.
I don't think he. I honestly am very skeptical that he is still president in 2020.
Yeah,
Just does
if
not
we can
seem likely.
remove Paul Ryan and Jeff Sessions, I would be a happy person.
I mean, I think Sessions is going to be a pretty easy one to get rid of. He is, you know, I think him, Reince Priebus, there are a bunch of people that seem to be on their way out the door.
Well, they've been saying penis for a while has been out the door, and like, when is he gonna get the out? And like, Bannon was on the chopping block for a while, but I guess you can't get rid of the dead. Like,
It's like a soap opera. I mean, the amount of drama.
That's actually a thing that happens a lot in authoritarian governments, interestingly, is there'll be lots of rumors of upheaval within the cabinet and stuff. And they'll actually spread this because it keeps people distracted by focusing on, you know, the day-to-day drama and soap opera of the whole thing, the spectacle, as opposed to the details of what they're actually doing and the fact that, hey, wait, these assholes are in charge of everything.
And they keep saying that, like, on, like, I think it's like Media Matters and like Think Progress. They keep putting out these like articles being like, while everyone was watching the Comey hearing, this was happening. And then like, I'll read about it and I'll be like, oh my God, why am I so stupid? Why did I have to pay attention to this? Like, this is awful. Like, they rolled back like a huge labor rights
the Dodd-Frank and
yesterday,
Consumer Financial Protection Bureau thing was today.
For today. And then yesterday, they erased a 2015 Obama rule that protected a lot of like franchisees workers and gig economy workers. So anyone between a McDonald's employee to someone who's driving for one of those like Uber, Lyft, and like the like gave because it extended their like labor rights, and they totally took it back and no one paid attention.
Yep.
Like,
everyone is focused on Trump.
It's so cringeworthy.
With all of that Trump stuff, where we're stuck right now is just waiting on the special prosecutors and more testimony. So we're just gonna, I guess, kind of stop there on that one, because at this point there's not much more to be said. Like,
I'm sure we'll have something by next week.
Yeah, well, we'll have something more tomorrow.
Right.
You know, just
but we
seeing how this goes.
can't lose sight of like healthcare, because that is going to happen.
Yeah,
and they're
it's very
trying, and they
important.
want to get something. They're hoping to get something passed and pushed through by July 4th.
I got luck with that.
Mitch McConnell's already saying that he's going to incite Rule 14, which will take away all committee hearings, which is fucking nuts.
Yeah.
This man is a fucking turtle with no goddamn spine, and he's heartless. And if I'm so pissed that turtles live forever, because that means he's never going anywhere.
I feel like there's a lot of turtles out there that if they could understand English would be, you know, wanting to sue you for defamation.
Oh,
for
I'm sure,
association
absolutely. And
with
I'm so
Mitch
sorry,
McConnell.
turtles, but someone push him on his back, please. Like, someone roll him on his back and then just leave him there. I really don't want, like, he's such a... everything about him is the worst. And like, there was even a bill that like Kristen Gillibrand and Ted Cruz agreed on. They both agreed on something, and Mitch McConnell was the block.
So yes, well, at this point, you know what I was kind of referring to was some of the paperwork we've got in front of us, because we are switching over to talk about the Intercept.
Intercepting our own conversation to talk about the Intercept.
Due to the Intercept's
I was left alone on that one. No one high-fived me.
Seriously, due to their incompetence, a source was outed. Although a source that, you know, might not have been too protectable in the first place, still a source that was outed. And it was outed due to, one, that source's own level of protection, and two, the Intercept's unbelievably stupid maneuvers in releasing this information. So the Intercept got a document from the NSA, a top secret document that was specifically about the evidence that we had about Russian hacking the election, what they attacked, what the cyber attack really entailed, and what systems they actually broke into or didn't or tried. You know, just all the information that we have that really proves to our government that Russia did it and what they believe happened, right? Now, they were actually mailed this document. So this document came through the mail, and one of the people working at the Intercept decided that, of course, you need to verify this stuff. And so he, an Intercept reporter shared a photo of the papers with a source, a government contractor whom he trusted, seeking to validate it. And this reporter from The Intercept reached out to an unnamed government contractor trying to determine the validity of the leak. And here's where it gets fun. The contractor told his bosses The Intercept revealed that the leak had been mailed with a postmark of Augusta, Georgia. Now, why would you tell them that it had come from Augusta, Georgia? I mean, they're going to know just by other, details of this document whether it's real or not. They don't need to be told exactly what city you got this mailed from. And then 2, when they shared this document, they sent it along without any obfuscating. And a lot of people don't know, but printers and copy machines and scanners all use microdots, and they mark pages printed on them and copied on them with the serial number of the printer, the date and time it was printed. All of this information is on every page you print out of, an HP printer, Xerox with a Xerox machine, whatever, right? And so when The Intercept sent over this picture, they had sent over such high quality that you could actually read the microdots on the paper to come up with an exact date and time. The other problem with the document that they sent over was that it actually showed a big crease. So what you have is proof that it was printed and handed in as a printed document. You have proof of a serial number, which, all of that is tracked properly at the NSA. They know, which printers are where. And you have a date and time, which really just leads to one person. This person printed it out. If they had none of that data, they say that 6 people printed out this document entirely. So maybe they would have had to have, thought about it for a few minutes, which one did it. But The Intercept really just handed this person who confessed. Reality winner.
Talk about reality loser.
One of just the best names of a leaker so far. I mean, really. So she was a contractor for the NSA and an Air Force vet with top secret clearance, and someone who
Also spoke 3 Middle Eastern languages.
someone who was very valuable to our government. A younger person, I believe, 25
I think.
years old.
25,
Yeah.
yep.
And publicly had definitely made comments that she was not happy with President Trump as our president. So
A lot of people have publicly made comments that they're not happy with Trump, including Secret Service agents. So she's not the only one.
So, there's a lot to be said here about the security mistakes made, the source protection mistakes made. But I would say to anyone really working with this type of material, a lot of the things that you need to do here start with not telling the NSA that you're reaching out to exactly where the mail you received came from.
Well, if they had,
So
if they had taken a picture, or if the envelope happened to be in the photograph, you can get so much information just from this postmark without
Right.
even because it's all. There's numbers of on everything. So if you see one the stamp that when it comes to your mail, those numbers give away your exact location.
right,
Yeah, that's
but
what it's used for.
you can
Tracking.
obfuscate the microdots
Yeah.
on an image once you've scanned it in to your computer. You can also clean up the image so it doesn't look folded and all these other fun things. But I mean, just at a bare minimum, don't say where the thing came from. And then your next step is obfuscate the microdots on any printed paper you get so it can't be tracked.
You think some place like the Intercept would know about that?
They are good at reporting, but their technical abilities, are not.
Yeah, even I know first rule is don't give away original material. Make photocopies.
Yeah, there are 100 things you could have done here. Now, I'm friends with some people at the Intercept. Hi, Glenn, how's it going? But come on, guys, this was amateur hour, and you know it. So
Things seemed very amateur. Even from her point, where it's she admitted to it. 6 people had because wouldn't she know about the microdots too, working at with the NSA? And having top secret clearance,
no, there's a lot of people with top secret and clearance that I bet just learned that that's a thing. I know some technical people that I just told that, people who have been using computers for years who were like, wait, what? And now that blows my mind because I've known about it for quite a long time.
She
But that's
seems
'cause
to have like,
I like had fun like decoding them and learning how you do that.
but she seems to
'cause I'm
have
a
a
nerd.
lot of like I guess qualifications that made her more valuable. You know what I mean? Like speaking 3 different languages, being an Army veteran, having top secret clearance, working with this contract. Like you would think that she would have known of how to protect herself better. I mean, I'm not blaming her for it, but at the same time, like it's kind of funny that it seemed so obvious. Like the trail seems so obviously led back to her that like.
And I mean, she'd like emailed the Intercept from her work computer a while back. Like,
Yeah, like even though apparently like those emails had nothing to do with the
Right,
source,
right,
but
but
at the
I
same
mean,
time, like
it creates a connection, and that's not really.
you don't use your work computer to do anything. Like you always like do it on like secured lines for anything. Like I had to do that when I was like talking to journalists, like when like trying to like talk shit about Whole Foods. I knew like I still knew better not to talk about it on a work computer.
So, I mean, that's really just, I guess, more of a shout out to people not to do that. Now, if you are a leaker and you would like to not have this stuff, happen, you can obfuscate all that first and, send this stuff in a digital way. There are 100 ways to do this. You can take a document, especially if you have it in hard copy and need to scan it in, get it scanned in, switch, its file formats. If you take a JPEG and you turn it into a PNG, you turn it back into a lower quality JPEG, you turn it black and white, you do just a few little things like that, and you obfuscate those dots enough that they can't make heads or tails of them. Just simple stuff. Cut out all the white space around the borders of these things, and you
Get
cut
the
off
white
parts
out.
of it.
Get it
just,
all out. Get rid of all the white.
There's literally there are websites dedicated to how to defeat these dots out there. You can just Google it. So just be careful about that.
It's a whole
Step
video
1.
game designated to eating the dots.
Yes.
Pac-Man reference.
That's our
That's my 1880s listeners.
That's our in-house comedian there, flopping.
You just don't appreciate my jokes, Jerry Seinfeld.
So that's a pretty simple one right there. And again, just, a little more careful there. Plus, if you plan on mailing something, don't do it from your hometown if your hometown somehow gives away who you are. Drive a few hours. This is that important, right? Anyways, I think we can move on from that one.
Or if you're going to mail it, put the return address as like 1600 Penn.
Sure.
Might as well leave it back to the White House,
So yeah, I think we can move on from that one. I mean, it's pretty simple. Just this. I mean, on some of the source protection stuff, on some of the leaking stuff, and on some of the other organizations who work on this, there are very specifically longer conversations to be had. But this is amateur hour. Defeating what led to her in 1 hour is quite easy and quite routine and unbelievably easy to Google.
Also, white people, stop naming your children Reality and Winner.
Winner was the last name, I think.
Well, that you gotta get a better last name. You can change that too on the birth certificate. What happened to John Smith? Keep it simple.
So let's move on to our next fun topic. We are going to talk about Qatar and
Not guitar.
not guitar, not Qatar. Qatar.
Guitar?
Not the guitar bear. Though, would that be so dope if he was here right now?
And there is
So dope.
no easy way to understand this problem. This problem stems from huge historical differences to religious differences to current state differences to terrorism and the different groups that these different countries support, to whether they support Israel or not and how much they support Israel. Like there's a million questions here, but what's going on right now is a group of 5 Gulf states have started a boycott and I mean, I would call it nearly, a blockade of Qatar. Like the land border with Saudi Arabia has been shut down, and you're no longer allowed to ship product across, which is leading to food shortages. Iran has stepped up and said their ports can be used to bring water and food in and out.
Cut off all like flights or anything.
They've cut off flights. So all these nations are saying they are doing it because of Qatar's support of terrorists. They list off groups like ISIS, groups like the Muslim Brotherhood. And Saudi Arabia specifically is saying that it is doing it not only because of those things, but because Qatar has been slowly getting closer and more friendly with Iran and doing such unbelievably horrible things, such as congratulating the winner of the last presidential election publicly.
Didn't Trump do that?
Yes, but how dare they? So we're looking at the difference of who is the leading power in the Middle East. Is it Saudi Arabia? Is it Iran? There's kind of a battle for who's in control of the Middle East, and you've got Qatar sitting right there as a small little piece off of Saudi Arabia, but working with Iran, and that really being an upsetting thing. And to Saudi Arabia, not, of course, to the rest of us, but, I should hope not. But you've got Bahrain, you've got the United Arab Emirates, you've got Egypt, you've got Yemen, and even...
Did Egypt cut off ties too?
Yeah.
Even though supposedly Qatar
and
was
Libya.
But wasn't I know with the whole email hack too recently, wasn't there a whole bunch of emails that supposedly listed Qatar as funding the Muslim Brotherhood of the Egyptian government was overthrown and they were elected the new guy.
Well, yeah, Egypt specifically says that Qatar is funding the Muslim Brotherhood, and
weren't they the ones that were elected in?
They were elected in, but that's interesting because them getting elected in, one, it was an unbelievable minority of the country that actually voted, and two, the Muslim Brotherhood are purported to, with a fair amount of evidence, to have strong-armed at most polling stations and to convince people not to vote for the other people and to threaten people into voting for them in order to get the majority and win the votes. So them getting voted in isn't
the Muslim Brotherhood in power right now in Egypt?
No, and hasn't been for a while.
I thought they got voted in twice.
Sisi removed them.
It was part of them. Anyways,
no.
Well, then it makes more sense.
Well,
Egypt
ladies and gentlemen, there we are, done for the night, as Kayla knows nothing of the Middle East.
No, Egypt isn't the entire Middle East. It's also,
anyways,
it's one country, and it's also in Africa too. So you can sit there and say
so you don't know anything about the Middle East or Africa, is what you're saying.
Wow! Look at this. Going right for her. All right, so in this,
me and Qatar were doing fine.
Yeah.
Until Saudi Arabia got in the mix.
So it kind of depends on which angle you want to come at this from. Obviously, you've got the Sunni Shiite thing, which is the religious differences between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And you don't even have to get into Wahhabism and all the other bigger differences. And then you've got the U.S. and Trump just visiting over there, and Trump, yelling and screaming about how Iran funds terrorism and
and blamed Qatar, called Qatar on Twitter one of the terrorist groups.
Yeah. Right, but then we know specifically from email leaks, including the Hillary Clinton leaks and the Podesta emails. In those leaks, we know that they believe that Saudi Arabia was actually helping to financially fund ISIS as well. So
we know that, and they were part of 9/11.
Of course, but so let's not do that one. I say that one is just them. It's political. And it's not real. It's posturing so they can say they're on the moral high ground. But then you look at what I think is the real problem here is that Saudi Arabia are, and to a bigger point, Egypt, Yemen, are upset with Qatar's media network, Al Jazeera, and the fact that it actually is pretty progressive in terms of what is talked about over there. Egypt has jailed many, Al Jazeera, reporters over the years, and I think this is not really about Qatar's supposed support of terrorism, and it's more about them finding a way to put pressure on that might get Qatar to back down from Al Jazeera. That's a personal opinion here, but
Al
that's what
Jazeera
I see
started
happening.
in Qatar.
Yeah, it started and funded by the Qatar government.
Yeah,
Oh,
the royal
fun.
family.
Although it's nominally independent, it just receives funding. But they're aside from well, they don't really cover any negative stories about the Qatar government, but on
The
pretty
They've
much
Qatar-
expanded pretty big because I know I've read some of their some of their articles are
Oh, yeah.
really.
I've been on Al Jazeera
Oh, yeah,
America
yeah.
a couple
Yeah,
times.
yeah,
Like
that-
I've actually been interviewed on there, been on a
they've
few of their
had some
shows.
really good. They do some really good
they're
journalism.
actually they're a really
so
good network.
that's a new twist. I didn't really like. I haven't really kind of.
Yeah, so that all
delved-
runs out of Qatar. Like their headquarters is in Qatar, and you know what's interesting is when kind of Qatar was founded and started, they the Al Thani family, the rulers of Qatar had even said clearly, you can actually say negative things about us. We aren't going to stop you. You have the journalistic freedom that you should have as a journalistic organization. You know, they were told, get it right. And now I haven't really seen them say anything, really negative or explosive about the actual ruling family of
No.
Qatar. They haven't used the supposed, power they've been given, and maybe that was all just lip service. But, it's interesting. And so then we get into this murky mess of, so there you go. Support Qatar for Al Jazeera, right? If you care about, maybe that journalism that's being done, but then they might actually be supporting the Muslim Brotherhood, and do you support them? That's kind of up to you, really. How you think about them. But then Qatar is a heavy supporter of the Palestinians and specifically Hamas. And so, do you
That's
support?
really get a lot of my Palestinian information from Al Jazeera.
Do you support the Palestinians? If you do, then you probably support Al Jazeera, which means you probably support, at least to some degree, Qatar in this argument. Or then you fall on the other weird side where, I am very against the current Turkish government. Erdogan especially is an authoritarian, aspiring dictator.
He's an elected dictator.
He is taking more and more power every year as he can, and he is in support of Qatar here. And that then leads me to question, well, wait a minute. How am I on the side that he is in support of currently?
And then just to throw it into the mix, the largest U.S. air base in the region is also in Qatar.
Yeah, I thought we had some a military connection.
We do. We have an air
yes.
base in Qatar right now, and Saudi Arabia is asking us to shut that down and just move more of our efforts onto their land, and extend
can't
our
see anything
wonderful,
going wrong there.
Yeah, so now, just to add to, maybe support of Qatar being the right side of this argument, which, again, it's really weird that you have to choose that at this point. There should be diplomatic solutions. But wait a minute. Because the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain have both now committed to immediate jail sentences for anyone who publicly, which includes social media, comes out in support of Qatar in any way or says anything positive about Qatar in any way and lives within either of those two countries. So if you were in Bahrain and you say, maybe Qatar, needs a better, shake here. Maybe this isn't the second you say that, it's jail time, according to the Bahraini government and the prince himself, in fact. We're starting to look at this as authoritarian governments. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain specifically, very authoritarian. I mean, they kill protesters in the streets. So with, of course, weapons sold to them through deals orchestrated by Hillary Clinton. But,
And
that's
recently
again
Donald Trump just did it. But anyways,
that's for another talk.
Back up for a second. So Qatar has a giant military base. Saudi Arabia wants us to move it onto their land. Trump just got back from his first trip to Saudi Arabia. There's got to be a connection. And I'm not saying Trump is behind this, but the Saudis definitely took something out of that meeting with Trump, going, "Now's the time to strike. Now's the time to get what we want." So it's I feel like something's bigger going on here. It's so why did they choose to all of a sudden I know the email leaks didn't help, but.
There's also just a couple days ago, I think The Guardian reported on an FBI inquiry that found that a number of leaks supposedly from Qatari government
the ambassador
were saying, nasty things about Trump and supporting Iran and this and that. And it turns out that the FBI's inquiry found that those weren't actually from the Qatari government at all. They were probably sent out by Russian hackers, not government associated.
Oh yeah, I read about that.
But freelance hackers working for parties currently unidentified.
It just seems very peculiar now that Trump gets back from his recent overseas visit, and now the Saudis are like, "Hey, let's move your Air Force base over here. We're your friends. You just gave us $100 million arms deal. Nothing can go wrong. Believe us. We've never done anything."
Did they give them $100 million arms deal?
Did
they? Wait a minute. Did they? Because no, they didn't.
No, well, they brokered a deal. They didn't accept it.
No, they didn't.
They didn't accept it. They did.
No, they didn't.
They didn't. That's it. They didn't accept the deal. But they
didn't broker it either.
Well, Jared Kushner talked about it and
he did talk about it.
And he had a gun manufacturer on his side and willing to go through with the deal. But
nope.
Most of that deal is actually stuff that was negotiated under Obama, and most of the rest is
including the manufacturer.
Right, and most of the rest was them basically saying, "Oh yeah, we'd be interested in buying a few $1 billion of weapons here. Yeah, we want billions of dollars. Oh yeah, we totally want some of those." They basically went down the wish list and went, "Oh yeah, I want that and that. Oh, definitely."
They agreed to nothing. They signed on to actually buy nothing, and almost the entirety of the deal that was even talked about in the press later was an Obama work.
Yeah, well, Saudi's the biggest buyer of our firearms.
Right,
that's always been a thing.
That's them attempting to take credit for a deal that they didn't orchestrate, that they didn't put together, and that they didn't get signed either.
Oh, you mean like Trump's entire business history?
Yeah.
But, let's get on to the more fun part here, because now... And, we actually know this to be true, that one of the big things that led to the initial sort of "we're done with you, Qatar," that the rest of, these 5 nations that are coming against them, what really started that was an article planted in Qatar's official news service, the state news service. And it turns out that article was actually planted by Russian hackers.
Right.
Now, Russia says that this was just, rogue hackers and it wasn't a government thing. The US FBI, our actual FBI, have come out and said that, this was indeed a Russian hack. And the fake news report actually caused them to take the state news offline in order to make sure that it didn't happen again, that no more spread. The report actually quoted Amir Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, the Emir of Qatar, on a number of sensitive regional issues and Doha's relationship with Donald Trump. He was actually quoted as saying, quote, "There is no wisdom in harboring hostility towards Iran," end quote. And that his relationship with Trump administration was, quote, tense. And that article was proven to be completely faked, and but it had already stirred a lot of anti-Qatari sentiment in all these other governments, which already had other reasons in their own, sort of minds of why they didn't like what Qatar was doing. And it took a long time for them to admit that this was indeed a fake article, which most of them do admit now, but, we've already gone too far down this rabbit hole. And it's really interesting to me that, we have this huge problem. And now in this actual problem, knowing that Russian article actually had something to do with this, we find out that the Qatari foreign minister is going to fly to Moscow for talks with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, to discuss the urgent international issues. So Russia had a fair hand in starting this problem, and now they're planning on negotiating, some kind of peace here. And just like almost everything, it seems these days, there's Russian hackers at the end of the rainbow. What is going on?
I don't understand. Well, what's America's stance supposed to be? I say supposed to be, as in like, what would a normal person?
Well, I mean, everyone's got to form their own opinion. The problem with this one is you can't just say one side is good and one side is bad, because the Qatari government aren't necessarily good people.
Aren't we like almost like in like?
Well, we've got bigger ones in the other countries over there. I mean,
okay. So, and then my other question, I guess, rhetorically, so all these countries are like cutting them off. Like, we just let them cut them off? Like,
well, I mean, I think it's really dumb of them to cut them off, because that only makes them more dependent on a good relationship with Iran, because that's going to be the only country over there actually getting them food and water. You know, they have they're a rich country, but they have a lack of any resources when it comes to actually creating their own food. They have a lack of arable land, of any real agriculture going on, and so their biggest deficit in Qatar is literally food. They bring in food, they bring in drinkable water. This is all imports for them. And so, you know, it's one of those few nations on the planet where actually trying to stop them shipping anything in or out of the country is really problematic. There's a few of them in Africa. There's a few other kind of landlocked nations that have similar problems because of the type of land they're on. But Qatar is especially susceptible to this. So now, if you're on the side of Qatar because maybe this has something to do with their progressive press freedoms, which, you know, don't go as far as we would like them to, but are definitely more than what you would see in Saudi Arabia or Yemen or even, you know, Egypt at this point.
Even Fox News.
Yeah, really. Then, you know, great. But then why does Turkey support them so much? What are they doing there? Because Turkey definitely has, you know, a way worse current reputation on
Turkey
media
against Saudi
and
Arabia,
journalism.
or are they friends?
Well, I think Turkey is pro-Iran at this point.
Yeah, so that's why I would see it.
And
like
so
anything,
that might be it.
Anything against Saudi Arabia, I can see Turkey being like...
Right, but it just becomes this mess of, if you support Qatar on this one, then you are supporting a side made up of Erdogan, Rouhani over in Iran,
or we can look at it as
maybe the Russians.
They're doing it for the wrong reasons, but if you support Qatar, maybe you're doing it for the right reasons.
Or are you on the side of Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Egypt, and these other currently authoritarian, you know...
Wasn't there also some type of Gulf alliance formed with these countries?
The supposed Arab NATO?
Yeah, because someone, like, I think it was Qatar, like, there was some AP, like, app, like, thing saying, like,
there's the Gulf, what is it, Gulf Consortium? Gulf Countries Consortium?
Yeah, there was some
it's the GCC.
Yeah, when this first broke,
I just can't remember
there was some AP notification that came out that said Qatar was saying that this is actually in violation of some international, like, alliance rule that they formed.
Yeah, the Gulf Cooperation Council.
That's right.
Is the intergovernmental union of which both Saudi Arabia and Qatar are members, but Iran is not. And Riyadh has long accused Doha of putting its own interests before those of the Gulf Cooperation Council. And that, again, plays to Riyadh's hatred of Iran. And... that just makes this a really hard one to choose a side on, or to really even kind of be informed on, because all of the sides in here, and there's not two sides, there's many sides to this, are lying about the other sides in so many ways. And a lot of it started with a Russian hack and a fake news story. And so this it's unbelievably hard to really understand. But one of the things that I want to see come out of this is Qatar still having Al Jazeera as a somewhat independent, you know, Arab news source that's actually based out of the region. Now, sure, there are questionable things that Al Jazeera has done in the past. There are definitely Qatari positive, you know, leaning forces in Al Jazeera.
But that's going to be something for all news organizations.
Correct. And, you know, and Fox is pro-America. I mean, you know, it's just,
we
you're going to have
that here
that.
with all of our news. Like, there's always going to be a very, like, pro-positive of whatever party line.
I mean, not even just Fox News, really. I mean, fundamentally, you're not going to see, like, I mean, we've known for decades now that the CIA has actively sought to put agents in news organizations. They have them in the New York Times. They've had them in the Washington Post. They have them in all of the news organizations.
Yeah.
It's not like these news
Like
organizations
it's inevitable for governments and news. Like
it's not great from the perspective of the people trying to get, you know, accurate information about what's going on, but it is a thing that you should expect in any given country that the news
Because the
organizations
truth
are going to be
always,
biased
you
in
know,
favor of.
is always the hardest, and a lot of people don't want truth to come out. This just baffles me in the sense that it's like we're just gonna let all these countries just cut off this tiny country and just let it happen.
It is a tough situation.
They don't really. The reason they're feeling the pain right now is that this just happened and that the countries that are coming to their aid are just now coming to their aid, right? So Turkey has okayed sending in troops. So Turkey is actually going to send troops in to help, protect Qatar. And Iran has opened its ports to all Qatari shipping and has stated very clearly, move all the water and food you need. And in fact, we're going to help by providing some of that. So other countries are coming to the aid, but before you even decide really, which side you might want to support in this one, you've got to decide what the battle is actually over. And right now, is it because Qatar has this somewhat progressive, especially for the area, news organization, or is it because of the religious differences, the Shia-Sunni split, or is it because, Saudi Arabia's claim that Qatar is supporting terrorists and that Iran and Iran is supporting terrorists when we know that Saudi Arabia is too? So, which one of the problems is the problem that this is really about? And then, which side do you find yourself on? There was an interesting tweet today, June 8th, by Julian Assange, of all people. And I'm going to read this tweet in its entirety for you. It says, "The head of Al Jazeera News told me in 2010 that Qatar has a nuclear weapon. Just one. Al Jazeera. It can be used once, then it's gone." Now, it's weird because if you read this, he's either saying they have a real nuke or he's claiming that Al Jazeera itself is some kind of nuclear option for them, in that, terminology. I'm reading this as Julian actually believes he was told that they have a nuclear weapon. That's what it seems to be trying to infer. And I don't see the relevancy of that being brought up here, true or not. I don't see this leading to that being the outcome.
I don't think a nuclear weapon should ever be the outcome for anything.
Well, I just also, I see, no matter what you think about whether they're more sane heads here, I see some diplomatic solution being what ends up happening here.
And then the other question too, if Russia did direct this hack and is behind, the Russian government is behind the news, fake news story, what's Russia's end game? What's their stake in stake in all this? What are they getting out of this besides?
There isn't much of an obvious benefit from Russia's in terms of Russia's own interests per se that I'm seeing, at least. Although there are, I can see a couple of ways in which Russia could benefit. First of all, of course, the destabilization of an alliance that the U.S. has promoted, and of course involves U.S. allies that the U.S. is very closely tied to, like Saudi Arabia. Maybe also destabilization. They might think that it's beneficial in that it could have some sort of effect on oil and gas prices. Maybe it could be a distraction from other geopolitical issues that would allow Russia to take steps to reduce sanctions on itself. There isn't an obvious, this directly benefits Russia. I can see a few possible ways that Russia could indirectly benefit from the results. But as per the FBI report, they said that it didn't appear that the hackers themselves were Russian government hackers, although they certainly could have been hired by the Russian government. They were just Russian hackers hired by party unknown.
They're probably just government contractors, like we call them here.
Well, I think we've talked a little bit about that on the show before, how hackers in Russia have a tendency to sort of end up, maybe government contractor isn't quite the right term.
But they end up working for the government one way or another.
Yes. And if they don't, they end up somehow dead.
Pretty much.
Mysteriously.
And
no one's going to be asking any questions.
If they don't also want to end up dead, that is. So this is a really tricky one because, I love ending conversations about this with a good guy, a bad guy, an understandable situation, a reason for why it's happening. But there are, 4 or 5 solid reasons this is happening. And maybe it's the combination of all. Maybe one of them is the real point that they're all mad about and they're using the others for cover. And then, which side you're on. I mean, I think in the end, the only thing that speaks anything positive to me is, the fact that the Qatari government does support Al Jazeera. And it does do, for that region, a very progressive version of journalism.
Oh, incredibly. Even by U.S. standards, it's pretty progressive.
Yeah, and so, that puts me slightly in that corner. But then you look at, the treatment of foreign nationals in that country and, the basic slavery of imported, maids and, housekeepers and whatnot, it's not a good country made of good people. And it's just like, it's just the others there, Bahrain. I mean, they murder democratic, protesters in the street. Anyone looking for reform gets jailed. So I don't think any players in this puzzle are good. So I don't know if there is a side to choose. I think I kind of end it there. I think it's just watch and hope that it doesn't get worse.
Yeah, maybe try and find some sort of, diplomatic solution so that the millions of people in Qatar don't starve.
I'm not sure if it's done unfolding yet.
No, we're going to be watching this one, especially when you think that, the Qatari minister is going to meet with Lavrov in Moscow. That will definitely change some things here. Yeah. So I think that one has to be revisited, and I think I do want to revisit that one because a lot of people might not see the importance of that one, but there's a lot of importance there. So we're going to follow that one, and maybe we come back to it next week or the week after. Next up, let's talk a little about the UK election.
Which is still happening, or did this whole
It is still happening, so we're not going to go on too long
results.
about this one. Exit polls still happening all the way up for probably another good hour and a half as of recording here. It's about 8:30 Eastern.
Yeah, I think I saw something early that said that Tories were up, and then right before I left to come here, they said something like, it's still too close to call.
They actually...
no Tory majority.
Yeah, not too long ago, the exit polls that I was seeing were saying that they are on track to have the Tories end up with 314 seats. And then if that's correct, their exit polls also show Labour with 266, Scottish National Party with 34, and Lib Dibs with 14, meaning that the three of them combined exactly the number of the Tories.
Which means nobody has a majority, which means nobody gets to form a government.
So they just become governmentless?
Well,
That's not really how it works.
I guess they'd
They
have to
negotiate
do a minority
a lot.
government of some sort. I don't know exactly how that works in the UK. I don't know when the last time they actually had one.
Has this ever happened?
Well, what you have to get is you have to get they form a coalition of other parties to come with them, and then they have to kind of allow some of that party's platform into their government that they build. The possible minority Labour-led government could rely on a Green Party MP and an SDLP. They have 3, the SDLP do, in the last parliament, and that would put them ahead enough to form a government.
Yeah, so, I was trying to read more about this earlier, but there was a lot of things that they were just live tweeting exit polls, and I'm like, no, I need the backstory here. Like, I need to know what's going on first before I realize what these exit polls mean.
So, the election itself is going to be interesting because given no strong mandate, no one party really pulling off the big win here, it's going to be hard to see where they fall with all their Brexit negotiations. They really wanted to have to have a very strong showing here for one party that could then kind of take control and move them forward through what every party is calling the future tough times of getting through these negotiations. And everyone kind of ending up as a minority is a problem for them. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of days with possibly forming a minority government, with, who they might be talking about to go into the government, into the shadow government, all the other fun stuff they do there. Yes. And we'll come back to this one once we have more results for next week. I think that kind of covers us for the day, which is surprising, as I thought we would go on for hours with this one. But Comey did a very good job of summing up a lot of what we wanted to hear today.
Morty, I hope they releases those tapes.
Right? I mean, it's just great when the biggest threat the president has against somebody is a thing that guy really badly wants to happen.
Yes.
Like, I'm going to do this. Please?
All right. Yeah,
Please do that.
it.
Thank you.
We're all wanting you to do that.
No, please, whatever you do, don't do that.
Yeah.
Maybe that would have been the better play. Maybe if Comey had said, "Oh, don't release the tapes," they would have somehow leaked.
I mean, he could still probably go on Twitter, tweet that at Donald Trump, and Trump would be like, "Oh, well."
Well then.
Speaking of Twitter, he didn't tweet once today.
Yeah, that was very interesting.
It's almost like the calm before the storm, where
I mean, I just assumed
I'm just
they
waiting for, like,
dogpiled him
3
and
a.m.
seized his phone.
Like 3 or 4 a.m., like it's going to go.
he's gonna unleash.
When no one's there to stop him.
Yeah,
He's locked himself in the bathroom.
It's only because he
So
doesn't
maybe
know
we
how the
need to
doors
do
Mr.
work.
President, come out, give us the phone.
Maybe we need to record a special episode tomorrow morning at about 5 a.m. after the Twitter storm.
Live tweeting is breaking news. He tweets. He's alive.
So
Tweet storm begins.
I want to end this episode with welcoming everyone to the new website at GreggHoush.com. As it goes live, as this episode goes live, I want to ask everyone to share it as far and wide as they can. Facebook, Twitter, all the other fun toys you guys have out there. We have a Facebook page going up, which is linked to from the new website. We have a Twitter account up from the new one, and we have a Patreon account to hopefully cover some of the costs around here and add video and live streaming and all the other fun stuff we want to do with this, and possibly more people on board and guests and all the other fun bits. So everyone come check that stuff out. If you're not listening to this on the website, again, that's GreggHoush.com, Gregg with 3 G's. So,
you gotta specify where the
Yeah,
G's
you should
are
probably
at.
specify
GreggHoush.com.
It's a Gregg.
Yes,
the
yes, yes.
GreggHoush.
The Gregg.
So, anyways, thanks for listening, everyone, and talk to you again next week.
The GreggHoush Show was created by GreggHoush and executive produced by co-host Derek Gowrays. Other contributors include producer and head writer Anna Jeffrey, producer-engineer David McGuffin, and producer-editor-engineer Robert Tortora. Theme music for the show was produced and recorded by Geneva de Colbert. Our interns include co-host Casey McLaughlin, writer-engineer Alec Greeny, and associate producer, writer, and announcer William Kennedy. You're listening to New Revolutionary Radio, your call to action.